Welcome back to NPA Discovery, where we uncover the stories behind the stars. The icons we thought we knew. The legends who laughed through pain, danced through despair, and gave us unforgettable memories at the cost of their own peace. Today, we bring you a tale that is both astonishing and heartbreaking. A story of a man whose face brought smiles to millions, whose feet moved like magic across the silver screen, but whose life was defined by tragedy and perseverance. Born into the spotlight. Donald O'Connor was quite literally born into the world of entertainment and chaos. His parents were vaudeville performers. His mother was a horse rider. His father, an acrobat. They lived on the road, performing in traveling shows across America. The stage wasn't just part of their life, it was their life. The downside? It was impossible to keep track of the details. In fact, Donald's birth certificate was so uncertain that his family wasn't sure where he was born. Or even when. He once joked that he could have been born on the back of a horse or under the stage. That uncertainty set the tone for a life lived in motion, with very little stability. By the time Donald was just 13 months old, he had joined the family act. While other toddlers were learning to walk, he was learning to entertain. But growing up under stage lights didn't shield him from real-life pain. Tragedy struck early. When he was just 2 years old, he and his 7-year-old sister Arlene were hit by a car. Donald survived. Arlene didn't. Can you imagine? The survivor's guilt. The confusion. The trauma. From that moment, Donald O'Connor carried something heavy with him. A weight that would never truly lift. Hollywood's youngest workhorse. After his sister's death, Donald's path only got more intense. The family doubled down on their act. Entertainment was not just a passion, it was a survival mechanism. Eventually, Donald caught the eye of Universal Studios. In the 1940s, he became a teen idol, starring in musicals alongside starlets like Peggy Ryan and Gloria Jean. He was young, handsome, and incredibly agile. He danced like few others could. But behind his effortless appearance was a secret. Donald had no formal training. He was a vaudevillian, a self-taught entertainer. That meant he was used to dancing, waist down, the old vaudeville way. Hollywood, however, wanted, core up, the elegant, posture-focused routines of Broadway and MGM. So, at barely 18, Donald found himself learning complex choreography on the fly. The pressure was immense. He didn't just have to perform. He had to transform. And just when it seemed like he might finally get a break, the draft notice came. War, marriage, and missed moments. At 18, Donald O'Connor joined the Army during World War II. He served in the Special Services branch, entertaining troops instead of going to combat. It might sound like a safer option, but the emotional toll was still heavy. The fear. The exhaustion. The pressure to keep morale high while battling his own doubts. Before he left, Donald rushed into a decision that would shape the next phase of his life. He married Gwen Carter, a fellow aspiring actor. In a hasty trip to Tijuana, they tied the knot. They had a daughter, Donna. For a moment, life seemed normal, but underneath, things were unraveling. Universal, eager to keep the O'Connor train running, pre-filmed a series of movies and released them over the 2 years Donald was away. So to the public, he never left. But when he returned, Hollywood had changed. And so had Donald. A mule and a dream. In 1950, Universal gave Donald a role in a movie that could only be described as bizarre. He played a soldier who befriends a talking mule in a film called Francis. It became a massive hit. The franchise took off, and Donald found himself starring in multiple sequels. But behind the scenes, the situation was less than glamorous. He once joked that the mule got more fan mail than he did. It wasn't all laughs. During one of the Francis films, Donald contracted a rare illness, one normally found in animals. He blamed the mule. And it wasn't paranoia. He was that sick. He had to decline a major role in White Christmas due to the illness. A heartbreaking loss. That could have been his second cinematic legacy. Instead, something else came along. Something that would define him forever. Singing, dancing, and suffering. Gene Kelly had a vision. He wanted Donald O'Connor to play Cosmo Brown in Singin' in the Rain. And with that, Donald stepped into one of the most iconic roles in film history. But it came at a massive cost. You see, Donald was still untrained in formal choreography. And he smoked 4 packs of cigarettes a day. That's not a typo. 4. One scene in particular would become the stuff of legend, Make 'Em Laugh. It involved backflips, pratfalls, wall runs, and a level of manic energy that left Donald completely drained. After filming, he collapsed. Some reports say he was bedridden for days. Others say he was hospitalized. And then the unthinkable happened. They told him the footage was unusable. He had to do it all over again. Falling behind and burning out. By the mid-1950s, Donald's body was showing signs of wear. The same endless energy that had dazzled audiences was taking a toll on him. He was mentally and physically exhausted. And the cracks began to show. His marriage to Gwen Carter fell apart. They filed for divorce in 1954. Around the same time, his performances became more difficult to maintain. Directors noticed he was becoming withdrawn. He would sit alone in his dressing room, staring into space. The sparkle was fading. Universal, always eager to typecast, kept pushing him into cheerful, boyish roles. But Donald was aging. He wanted more range, more respect. Eventually, he made the bold decision to leave Universal Studios. He believed he was finally free. Instead, it backfired. Leaving the studio meant leaving the protection, the contracts, the guaranteed work. While he did continue acting, he never again reached the height of his earlier fame. Still, life offered him a silver lining. In 1956, Donald remarried, this time to actress Gloria Noble. And this marriage stuck. They had 3 children together and remained married until Donald's death. Love returned to his life, but the spotlight had dimmed. The long road of resilience. Donald O'Connor never stopped working. Despite the loss of fame and the changing tides of Hollywood, he continued to perform, on TV, on stage, in nightclubs. His name might have faded from headlines, but his spirit hadn't. Yet, the industry was unkind to those it once adored. His attempt at hosting a TV variety show in 1968, The Donald O'Connor Show, fell flat. Network executives called him too political, and the show was quickly cancelled. It was a brutal blow. Desperate to maintain his edge, Donald made a dangerous decision. He began taking nitroglycerin pills to boost his energy before performances. The pills worked, but only for a time. In 1971, they caught up with him. Donald suffered a heart attack. He was lucky to survive. But even then, he wasn't fully transparent about the other problem, alcohol. The smiling man who once dazzled millions had been slowly self-medicating for years. The habit started during his time in the army and escalated throughout the pressures of fame. At his worst, he wasn't just drinking, he was collapsing. One of the darkest moments came in 1978 when he physically collapsed from alcohol abuse and lost all feeling from the waist down. Doctors feared permanent paralysis. But Donald fought back. He checked into a hospital. Spent 3 months in recovery. And against all odds, regained his mobility and beat his addiction. The final act. By the time Donald O'Connor entered the 1990s, he was no longer the wide-eyed boy of vaudeville or the kinetic comedian of the big screen. He was something far more powerful, a survivor. In 1990, he underwent quadruple bypass surgery. The man who once backflipped across studio lots now had to learn how to walk slowly and carefully again. But this wasn't the end, it was simply another challenge he was determined to overcome. Then came 1994, and with it, another near-death experience. Donald and his wife Gloria were at home when the Northridge earthquake struck Southern California. It was the dead of night when the ground began to shake. The tremor was so violent it shifted their entire home off its foundation. The house nearly fell into a nearby canyon. Miraculously, a tree stopped their fall, literally saving their lives. Most people would have taken this as a sign to slow down, to retreat into the comfort of anonymity. But not Donald. He kept showing up. He kept giving interviews. He kept making appearances. He even danced, just enough to prove to people that he could still move. Then came 1999. Donald contracted pleural pneumonia, a condition far more dangerous than typical pneumonia. His age and health made it life-threatening. But once again, he fought. And once again, he survived. It was almost as if O'Connor's body, no matter how broken, refused to let his spirit die before its time. Even as he entered his late 70s, he continued to smile. He said in one interview, "I don't dance much anymore, but I do enough to show people I can still move my legs." That's who he was. Even when the lights dimmed, Donald O'Connor kept dancing. But the curtain must fall eventually. On September 27, 2003, Donald O'Connor passed away from heart failure at the age of 78. He died in Woodland Hills, California, leaving behind a loving wife, 4 children, countless friends, and millions of fans, many of whom didn't even know how much he had endured to make them laugh. His final wish was both simple and profound. He requested that his belongings be auctioned off, with the proceeds donated to charity. No grand monuments. No demands for headlines. Just one last act of giving, and perhaps, that is the most fitting final bow for a man who spent his life giving pieces of himself to the world. If this story touched you in any way, we ask you to honor Donald by liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing it with someone who needs inspiration today. Let his legacy live on. Thank you for watching. Until next time, stay kind, stay curious, and remember, behind every smile, there's a story worth telling.